He stood by the church gate, his trembling hand clutching the worn handle of his cane, eyes fixed on the woman he once thought would be his forever. Rain tapped softly against the marble steps, but inside the grand hall, music and laughter echoed, the kind that stings when it's not yours anymore. The bride stood in her shining gown, radiant and cruel all at once. Her eyes flicked toward him, and the smile she gave wasn't the one he remembered. It was sharp, cold, meant to wound. "You've become a pathetic cripple," she spat, her voice slicing through the murmurs of guests who tried to pretend they hadn't heard. The words hit him harder than the car crash that took his legs, his career, and everything he had once built. Her name was Alina, and once, she had been his whole world. Before the accident, before the hospital bills, before her parents whispered that she deserved better than a broken man. He'd been strong then, both in body and spirit. The kind of man who could build, fix, create, who believed love could weather anything. But love, it seemed, wasn't meant to stand on crutches. The guests watched in awkward silence, unsure whether to pity or applaud the cruelty. Alina turned away with a triumphant flick of her hair, her arm wrapped around her new husband's. A banker, wealthy, whole. The groom didn't even look at the man at the gate, as if disability made him invisible. He said nothing, he only bowed his head, his fingers tightening on the cane until his knuckles turned white. The church bell rang, people cheered, and he, Daniel, turned and walked into the rain, one slow, uneven step at a time. He wandered aimlessly that night through the empty streets, his reflection in puddles a haunting reminder of what was lost. Every lighted window he passed seemed to mock him, families gathered around tables, couples laughing over dinner, a world still spinning without him in it. He thought about ending it, about letting the darkness swallow him whole. But then, from an alley, came the soft sound of someone crying. He followed the voice, drawn by something beyond his own pain. There, crouched beside a dumpster, was a woman in a cleaner's uniform, gray, soaked through by the rain, her hands clutching a torn plastic bag. She was older, maybe 50, her eyes swollen and red. Next to her sat a small boy, shivering, barefoot. "Are you all right?" Daniel asked, his voice hoarse from hours of silence. The woman looked up, startled. "We'll be fine," she whispered. "Please, go, you shouldn't be out here." But Daniel didn't move. He looked at the child, no older than 7, and saw the same kind of quiet suffering he carried. "You're cold," he said softly. "Take this." He removed his coat, the only decent thing he had left, and wrapped it around the boy's shoulders. The woman shook her head. "No, sir. Please, you need it more than we do." Daniel smiled weakly. "No, I've lost enough warmth already. Don't make me lose this, too." The boy clung to the coat, his small face lighting up for the first time. The cleaner's eyes filled with tears. "You're a kind man," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, just a man who forgot what kindness feels like until now." They sat there under the flickering streetlight, 3 strangers bound by a quiet, wordless understanding. When morning came, Daniel helped them find a shelter, using the last bit of money he had left for a warm meal. He didn't ask their names, some things, he thought, were better left unspoken. Weeks passed. Daniel found work sweeping floors at a rehabilitation center. The irony wasn't lost on him, a man who once built skyscrapers now pushing a broom with one good leg. But he didn't complain. Work was purpose, and purpose was survival. One day, while cleaning the hallway, he heard a familiar voice behind him, cold, sharp, unforgettable. "Daniel." He froze. The broom slipped from his hand. Turning slowly, he saw Alina standing there, her wedding ring glinting under the fluorescent lights. She looked uncomfortable, clutching her designer purse like it was armor. "I didn't know you worked here," she said, her tone awkward. Daniel smiled faintly. "You didn't know a lot of things." She flinched. "I didn't mean what I said that day," she began, her voice faltering. "I was angry, scared. You were different after the accident. I wanted someone who wasn't broken," he finished for her. "It's okay. I understand now." Alina's eyes filled with tears, but he could see the guilt was more about her reputation than remorse. "Daniel, I'm sorry." Before he could respond, another voice called from down the hall. "Mr. Daniel, we finished the setup for the event." It was the cleaner, the same woman from that rainy night. She was dressed neatly now, with a badge that read, "Supervisor." Beside her was the little boy, now smiling proudly, holding a tray of water bottles. Alina blinked in confusion. "You work with her?" Daniel smiled. She's my boss now. The cleaner walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. Good to see you, Alina, she said calmly. I remember you. Alina frowned. I'm sorry, have we met? Oh yes, the cleaner replied, her voice gentle but firm. The night of your wedding. You threw your bouquet into the street. It landed near us, me and my son. We saw you shouting at this man, calling him pathetic. The color drained from Alina's face. You were there. Yes, and I'll never forget the look on his face. Because that same night, when no one else stopped to help me, this pathetic man gave his coat to my child and spent his last money to get us food. She turned to Daniel, her eyes warm. That's the night my son started calling him uncle. The silence in the hallway was thick. Alina's lips trembled. She tried to speak, but no words came. The cleaner took a deep breath, her tone calm but cutting. You called him broken, but the truth is, you were the one who was empty. Some people lose their legs and still stand taller than those who never fall. Daniel looked away, embarrassed by the praise. The cleaner smiled gently at him. You showed me that kindness doesn't need wealth or perfection, just a heart willing to give. Alina stood frozen, her mascara beginning to smear. I didn't know, she whispered. No, Daniel said softly. You didn't want to know. He turned back to his broom, leaving her standing in the sterile hallway, surrounded by the echoes of her own regret. From that day, Daniel's life began to change in small but meaningful ways. The rehabilitation center promoted him, recognizing his patience and empathy with new patients. He helped others find strength in their brokenness, teaching them how to live again, one step at a time. The cleaner, whose name was Irina, became his closest friend. Together they started a small outreach program for accident victims and homeless families. Word spread quickly, and donations began to pour in. People who once walked past Daniel without seeing him now came to shake his hand, to thank him, to be near the quiet dignity that radiated from him. Years later, a local newspaper published a story about the man with one good leg who never stopped walking. It spoke of how his small act of kindness on a rainy night had grown into a community movement, helping hundreds find hope. Alina read that article sitting in her luxurious but empty apartment. Her husband had left her for someone younger. The silence of her home was unbearable. She traced Daniel's picture with trembling fingers, the same hands that once pointed at him in scorn. And for the first time, she wept not for what she lost, but for what she threw away. Daniel, meanwhile, sat by the window of the community center, watching the children play outside. His prosthetic leg ached sometimes, but his heart was light. Irina brought him tea, and her son, now a teenager, laughed nearby, helping another boy with crutches learn to walk again. Uncle Daniel, the boy called. He's doing it, Daniel smiled. Of course he is, because he believes he can. Irina sat beside him. You saved my life that night, she said quietly. He shook his head. No, you saved mine. You gave me a reason to keep walking. The sun dipped low, painting the world in gold. Daniel leaned back, his gaze soft, full of peace. He realized then that love hadn't abandoned him, it had simply changed its shape. It no longer came in the form of a bride in a white dress, but in the laughter of children, in shared cups of tea, in the strength to stand again after falling. Sometimes he still thought of Alina, but not with anger. He hoped she had found her own way to kindness, to forgiveness. Because that was the true lesson he had learned, that pain could break you or build you, but compassion was what made you whole. As evening settled, the lights of the center glowed warm against the dusk. Daniel stood, balancing on his prosthetic leg, and walked toward the door where the children waited. Each step hurt a little, but each step meant something. And though the world had once called him broken, in that quiet moment, Daniel knew he had never been more complete.